Welcome everyone to the Yissilmissil Productions channel. My name is Steven Yissil, and today we are continuing our Bermuda Triangle deep dive series with part 18. Great to have you all here. I see Jay is in the chat. Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind comments here. Yes, we have a chapter to finish today. So, we'll be getting to that shortly. Gonna cue up the music. And we will get rolling. I hope you all had a good week. We did end up doing our Madness Hour tribute to Hulk Hogan. Unfortunately, WWE blocked the video worldwide, so I'm working on getting that up to Rumble and Odyssey, as well as BitChute. I'll have an edited form of the Madness Hour episode on the channel here in the very near future. But, yeah, it was a good time last week. And we took an extra week off from Let's Talk About It, but we'll have a new Let's Talk About It this Sunday. And it is going live 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. And tomorrow we also have a treat for our paid members of the channel. We'll be starting the Great Lakes Triangle deep dive. So I'm really looking forward to starting that for all of you. Now, with the video being members only, that means only the channel members who are paying to be a member of the channel will have access to it. In time, that series will be made public. But at least for the first few 2 or 3 parts, those will all be exclusive to members only before I make them public. So you guys get a first look at all of that before anyone else. Jay Wild says, I'm making short rib fajitas while I watch and listen. Very nice. It's always good to have food going. I am finished eating for the day. I think the last thing I had was my sardine bowl. I add in a lot of spice to it. I put peas in it, sour cream, a few other things, but mostly I make it a spicy dish. I add a lot of cayenne pepper in there for my heart health. So we're starting off from where we left off last week. Page 65 in the Gian J book, Into the Bermuda Triangle from 2004. And we have our slideshow going of the Illuminati, which has traversed the bottom of the ocean around the Bermuda Triangle. So, let's jump in. And we'll finish this chapter titled The Riddle of Vanished Ships. I was gonna try to finish it last week in one stream. We would have ended up going about 3 hours. So I'm trying to keep this in a format now. As long as we can get everything covered in 2 hours. That's what I'll call an individual part of this series. Although we could go longer for future episodes, but I'm just trying to stick to a schedule here. That way it's not overwhelming. You know what you're in for. And any new watchers today, welcome. I did put a notification up on Instagram as well as TikTok. It might have gone out to Facebook too, I'm not too sure. But I made a point to put notifications out for people to tune in and watch. But anyways, let's begin, shall we? When a boat disappears in any of the Triangle's southern waters, the Bahamas and the Straits of Florida near Cuba, the possibility of piracy or hijacking must always be kept in mind. This suspicion has proven valid on a number of occasions. In one instance, a pertinacious investigator was able to prove, some 8 years after the fact, that the yacht Flying Dutchman, which had vanished in 1976, was still around and trafficking drugs. Piracy even surfaced in 1963 in the case of the Marine Sulphur Queen, a 504-foot T2 tanker with 39 crew. Her last report placed her approaching the Keys from the direction of the Gulf of Mexico. She had departed Beaumont, Texas for Baltimore with a cargo of molten sulfur. The message consisted of a personal call from one of the crewmen to his stockbroker about a purchase. When Marine Radio tried to send the reply several hours later, it could not raise the ship. No contact could be made. The Coast Guard later used this time period to establish her disappearance around February 4th between 1:30 a.m. and 11 a.m., roughly placing her approaching the dry Tortugas. An intensive search operation was ordered February 7th when she failed to arrive in port. This search involved numerous cutters and aircraft, eventually covering 348,400 square miles of ocean and 499.6 search hours. Not one shred was found of her. As an aside, the Coast Guard located 42 other vessels that might have seen her, but all signaled negative, an indication of how busy the traffic is along the Gulf Stream. On February 13th, the search was discontinued. Yet 1 week later, near Key West, debris was spotted. This jump-started a new search, which eventually turned up a couple of life rings, life jackets, a foghorn, and even a broken wooden signboard bearing part of the vessel's name. Quote, Irene Sulph. So the Marine Sulphur Queen is just a portion of it. Where the debris had come from remains a mystery. For a sonar search conducted between March 20th and April 13th in the area, indicated to be the most likely according to a drift tabulation, revealed no hulk of a sunken vessel near the dry Tortugas that could not be explained as another sunken vessel. One piece of debris was particularly suggestive of manipulation. This was a life jacket around which was tied a seaman's shirt. The shirt was examined by the Bureau of Fisheries, which concluded it had been worn by a sailor. They also noted several thrash marks on it consistent with those caused by blows from predatory fish. Before this discovery, several stories had been circulating about the MSQ, or the Marine Sulphur Queen, having been hijacked to Cuba, which was at its most volatile since Castro had taken over. The discovery of the debris seemed to conveniently belie these arguments, although it remains hard to explain why a crewman would tie his shirt around a life jacket, or why a shark would attack a shirt without a man in it. But no trace of the Marine Sulphur Queen in Cuba has ever come to light, and nothing could ever be proved, however obvious a clue the shark thrashed shirt on the life jacket appears to be. Hi Madeline, thank you for being here. Madeline says, hey there Steven, in chat, hope everyone's having a great night. Yes, it's a great start to a great night, and we're gonna have a great one for sure. Other large vessels have since vanished, all of them on routes within the Bermuda Triangle but far from Cuba. Among these, the disappearance of the 590-foot Sylvia L. Osa is noteworthy. Relaying from on the scene, one Coast Guardsman observed, quote, "It's not easy to miss a 590-foot long ship on a day with visibility of more than 40 miles and calm seas. So it doesn't seem too hopeful that the ship is still afloat." End quote. Her last message on October 17th, 1976 was a routine position report indicating her ETA at Philadelphia, where she was bound from South America with a cargo of ore. Her last position was given as 140 miles southwest of Bermuda, from where it was later determined she must have suddenly disappeared. This was shown by the discovery, as in the case of the MSQ, of a piece of her shattered wood signboard reading El Osa, and that's spelt out capital L dot capital O SSA, floating in near the vicinity. Then a lifeboat was found intact, but the lifeboat had not been launched. It had been ripped from the ship by a terrific force. The Poet, a 520-foot cargo ship carrying grain, or number 2 yellow corn to be precise, was last known to be within only a few hundred miles of this same area in 1980 before she and her 34 hands disappeared without trace. In her case, there is the added element of no EPIRB signal being picked up. She had been in transit between Cape Henlopen, Delaware, which she had left October 24th, 1980, on a Roomb line course to Port Said, Egypt. Her next position report was due October 26th, or 2 days later, when she should have been northeast of Bermuda. Since the report was never forthcoming, it was deduced that she vanished before this while passing north of Bermuda. And here we have a drawing of the SS Poet. So again, another vessel just vanished. Hey Andreas, good to see you. Thanks for being here. Theories about the poet's disappearance included a, quote, freak storm with 70-mile-per-hour winds that came from nowhere, a, quote, rogue wave, end quote, which had sunk the Kesh Wandering Agnes in the same vicinity on October 26th, as well as the yacht Polar Bear. Both crews survived, making the disappearance of the 11,000-ton poet intriguing by comparison. So again, 11,000-ton vessel right there. Just disappeared, straight up vanished. And they're trying to say maybe a storm took it out, like these two other boats. The idle accusation that she was a, quote, rust bucket, end quote, was disproved. A common accusation after any ship disappears. Also disproved was an imaginative story that her cargo of corn may have gotten wet from a leaky hatch and expanded until it burst the hull and sent her down like a rock. A combination of the above, like a rogue wave and a leaking forward hatch, was also considered. The Marine Board of Investigation favored the hypothesis that she capsized in quartering or following seas, but the commandment overruled this in favor of a, quote, loss of hull integrity, end quote. An ingress of water could have gone undetected by the crew until the ship sank by, quote, plunging, capsizing, or floundering, end quote. There was also acrimony involving her owners, Hawaii Eugenia Company, for not reporting her overdue after she failed to send her October 26th position report. But ultimately, there was no trace upon which to base any theory. The Poet was not the first vessel to vanish without even its automatic alarm signal being detected. The 337-foot freighter El Caribe vanished as utterly in calm seas in October of 1971, after signaling itself only 2 days from its destination of Santo Domingo. Among the many mysteries that have come to pass in the Bermuda Triangle, the occurrence of deserted ships are the most striking. There is nothing more provocative than boarding a lifeless ship and gazing at the remainders of interrupted life. The sensation has caused even the most level-headed to elaborate upon their discovery with innumerable adjectives to the point of sensationalizing it. Not a few have been Navy and Coast Guard officers who were first to board such vessels. Such is the case with the Ruth in 1997 and the Rubicon in 1944, both of which turned out to be easily explained by having broken their moorings and drifted out to sea while their crews were ashore. Unexplained derelicts, however, usually recur within similar locations within the triangle. A disturbing number happen where ships often tend to disappear more frequently as well. The luxury yacht Connemara 4 was found abandoned 140 miles southeast of Bermuda in September 1955. The vessel was sturdy enough to have survived 3 successive hurricanes without a crew before it was discovered. It then conveniently sank while under tow by a freighter called Olympic Cloud. What had happened to the crew was never answered, since the clues, if there were any, went to the bottom of the sea with her. Several yachts continue to be found derelict east of the Triangle and southwest of the Azores. This can be explained by the east-northeast current of the Gulf Stream conveying a pilotless ship. In 1969 alone, 5 yachts were found derelict northeast of the Sargasso Sea. 2 of them were found keeled over, and one of these was noted to have barnacles on it, a good indication it had been floating aimlessly for a while before being spotted by a passing freighter. One vessel found upright was identified as the Vagabond, belonging to Peter Wallen of Stockholm, who had been sailing around the world. Where exactly the crews had disappeared, jumped ship, or were removed is not known, but the currents in the area suggest they may have been in the vicinity of the Sargasso Sea or on its perimeter in the stronger Gulf Stream currents north of Bermuda. This appears to be the scenario in the case of other deserted vessels. After the crews had left or been removed, the unguided boat succumbs to subsequent rough seas. In the case of Michael Plant, his sailing yacht Coyote may have drifted hundreds of miles on the North Atlantic drift until it was found capsized and deserted near the Azores in 1991. Plant was last heard from north of Bermuda in a radio message that was both weak and unintelligible. Earlier, he had reported to a freighter that he had lost electrical power and the use of his long-range radio. Most of these yachts had only one person on board. The most prosaic explanation is that they all fell overboard. Although tethering is common and recommended practice, each skipper may have fallen off when not tethered, when an unexpected wave hit the boat or sudden gust surged the vessel and heeled it over before it righted itself again. But deserted vessels have been found that had had more than one man aboard, in some cases from 3 to 11 crew. The late biologist Ivan Sanderson, an accomplished sailor and British secret agent during World War II, made an independent study of the Bermuda Triangle, which he published in many articles and books. On the inexplicable nature of derelict vessels, he observed in Invisible Residence, which I assume it's a publication that he released, quote, "Certain facts should be noted. First, even an inexperienced or leaderless crew seldom, if ever, abandons ship because of a storm. To do so is obviously asinine, because if the ship won't hold up, no yawl, gig, or other small lifeboat can do so." End quote. In each of the following cases, there is no reason why the crews abandoned ship. Like the 11 crew of the Carroll A. Deering off North Carolina in January 1921, although murder and mutiny were possible. The Lucky Edur, spelled E-D-U-R, having left port with 3 fishermen aboard in 1971, was found abandoned, throttle engaged, and out of fuel off Cape May. The British cargo schooner Gloria Colida was found derelict in unusual circumstances in February 1940. The schooner was waterlogged but not sunk. Her cargo of lumber had prevented her from sinking. The crew was, however, gone. There were indications they had been stopped in the middle of rigging sail, since one of the lines was found fouled and dangling. Bad weather no doubt came along afterward and swamped the unattended vessel. The boarding party of the patrol boat Cardigan noted that her lifeboat was gone, but it was not certain if it had been launched or washed off by the subsequent bad weather. Among the more modern is the unusual case of the Hawarden Bridge, a coastal freighter credited with having been the first Allied vessel to enter Dunkirk Harbor after its liberation in 1944. It says here, she had 5 to 7 crew. Sold off to a Barbados company, she plied her trade along the Indies until she became a modern Mary Celeste. When she was found drifting on March 14th, 1978, on her course to Miami, the Coast Guard boarded her to discover and record, quote, "Cargo holds dry/empty. 2 life rafts missing. No gyro. Magnetic compass removed. No communications equipment. Engine room flooded. No persons on board." End quote. Hey, Jason H., good to see you. Jason says, whenever I hear schooner, I think of the movie Mallrats. I do too. Kevin Smith was one of the first directors I studied. Believe it or not. It's a schooner. So that's wild. The magnetic compass was removed from this ship that we're talking about here. Neither Lloyd's nor the Coast Guard could find a trace of what happened to the entire crew, nor was evidence left behind to suggest why they fled, other than the unexplained flooded engine room. Derelict vessels have continued to turn up in unusual circumstances at every corner of the triangle. Off the Carolinas, in May 1985, 3 Marines and 3 children disappeared off an outboard boat, though it was later found at the end of a trail of their floating life jackets. On January 2nd, 1998, the recreational boat Formosa was discovered deserted. And on August 5th, 1999, an 18-foot day cruiser was found abandoned except for a barking dog, the pet of the owner, who had taken the boat out to do some day fishing. Most recently, a 28-foot cabin cruiser was found derelict off South Carolina on May 19th, 2001. And again, keep in mind this book was published in 2004. So that would be roughly 3 years before the publication of this book. The condition of the vessel, with empty fuel tanks and the throttles wide open, suggests that the skipper, Derek Smith, forced the boat to the highest speed possible before disappearing. While the Coast Guard noted that Smith's wallet was found on board, they did not note if it was found with his clothes. So was it sitting by itself? We don't know. In another incident off Miami on May 11th, 1975, a 20-foot day cruiser was found derelict and splattered with blood, and its skipper, a Miami doctor, was missing. On April 30th, just 2 weeks earlier, a 27-foot cabin cruiser was found cruising in circles 14 miles off West End, Grand Bahama. Blood splattered the boat. The clothes of both occupants were found, as well as the owner's wallet with more than $100 in it, meaning that whoever perpetrated these incidents was not interested in clothes, money, or the value of the boat, merely the people. What or who would do this? If we were to follow the logical train of thought, which I don't think you could really apply to any of these cases. But I would say they kidnapped the people for trafficking. But we're also talking about this particular area where they also have planes that show up with the pilots missing and the keys still in the ignition. I would say it's something along the lines of these people were abducted. They were abducted by something. Leaves all the money behind. I mean, that rules out any pirates. Even if it were human traffickers, you would think they would take the money along with the people, right? If money has no bearing on whatever did this, it just makes you think, doesn't it? Jay Wild brings up a good point. He says it suggests underwater infrastructure, maybe. Very well could be. See, I'm still thinking in the terms of these things or beings, whatever you want to say here, because we truly don't know, are meeting them at the same level or from above. But we need to start thinking about what's coming up from below the water. Because whatever's interested in these people, it's taking the people. I mean, that's pretty solid at this point. This same scenario applies to another derelict discovered in July 1980. The 38-foot sailboat Kalia 3, spelled Kallia, belonging to Bill and Patty Kammerer of Fort Myers, Florida, was found near Pipe Cay in the Yissilmissil of the Bahamas. Harry Urell, an Illinois state legislator, there we go, was the first to come upon it. As he circled it in his fishing vessel, Shark 2, the dinghy came into view. In it was the dead body of a man, his head and upper body hanging over the side into the water, and his lower half covered with, quote, something blue. Are these people being pulled into the water by something? By the time authorities were able to overfly the area a few days later, they noted that the body was still in the dinghy. Upon closer investigation the next day by boat, the body, after all those days, had conveniently disappeared. A description of what they found. There were apparent bloodstains in the pilot area of the stern of the boat, and what appeared to be gunshot marks on the left side of the stern of the boat. There were also what appeared to be bullet holes in a red 2-gallon tin, which was tied to a rail on the right side of the boat's stern. 2 spent flare cartridges and 4 live flares were found at the stern of the boat. The flare gun was not found. A pair of glasses with brown frames was found on the deck of the stern. In the gallery, there were apparent blood stains. There was a small amount of water in the bottom of the dinghy, and on its right side were apparent blood stains. There was a large amount of maggots on the right side. So that description tells me they were attacked by something and they were trying to call for help. And given this area, their radios probably weren't working for them. They were probably signaling for help and nobody was calling back. Because they're in this specific area. Yeah, I'm not too sure what the blue coloring on its lower half might have been. I'm looking at the chat here. Just give me a second. Jay Wild says we might be the most valuable resource. I agree. Madeline says, I'd say the blue substance found on the man could suggest he was pulled feel underwater. I'm guessing you meant full underwater. But what would be blue? Like, the water's not blue. Or maybe they were covered with something. I don't know what I'm trying to say with it. Like, whoever or whatever's taking these bodies, do they have to adhere something onto our skin before taking us? Oh. Madeline says she meant deep underwater. But where would the blue come from? I'll read that part again. In it was the dead body of a man, his head and upper body hanging over the side into the water, and his lower half covered with something blue. This just has me thinking of what possibilities might be. Was he trying to escape whatever was in the air near him? And he tried to duck under the water? Or maybe this blue substance, because that's obviously what they're saying here, is something blue covered his lower half. That, what was it, like a blue fog? Hey Joel, oh man, we got a bunch of people popping in. Andreas. Oh, Andreas says the horseshoe crab. They do have blue blood. It doesn't fully explain what happened here though. Hey Juan, good to see you. Alright, let's just continue on here. But this one in particular has me thinking. I would say they were trying to get away from something that was at the surface. Kind of like sticking your head in the water to avoid a blast. Or like what I was saying with the fog coming in. I don't know. Alright, let's continue on here. There is something of excessive ambiguity in the report on points that should have been more than clear by the date it was issued. October 1980. And then only because of international pressure. Allegations of a cover-up continued, especially since by this time, blood and bullet holes could be easily proven. Yeah, so they used their guns, they shot their flares off. I think it's safe to say something approached their vessel, and they were defending their lives, and tried to call for help. Then there is the peculiar mystery of Great Isaac's Light near Bimini. This government lighthouse station was found abandoned in August 1969 when a launch came from Bimini to check on it. The two lighthouse keepers, Ivan Major and B. Mollings, were gone, leaving the islet deserted and silent, except for the chatter of nearby passing boats over the lighthouse CB radio. I need to pause. I need to take a drink of water here. Oh yeah, Madeline. Madeline says, do you think it's likely world governments know what's going on in the Bermuda Triangle? I'm sure they do. I'm sure they have an idea of what's going on. But at the same time, I don't think they 100% understand what's going on either. There's definitely something known more so with the government. They have to know something else is going on. And I do believe that they are participating with these UFOs. Like, some of these UFOs are the government's. Hey, Beyond the Box. Good to see you here. Other derelicts in this area include the schooner City Belle, with 10 persons aboard, found on December 5th, 1946. Later reports by Lloyd's indicate survivors were found in a boat and taken to Exuma, Bahamas. However, the case was then dropped and nothing else was heard, nor was the story ever confirmed. Yeah, with as many cases as we've heard about now up to this point, it does seem like there's a lot of information being left out for especially these mysterious disappearances of people and the derelict boats where there's nobody aboard. But there's obviously evidence that something happened there. And if we're going into that territory of cover-ups, for all we know, some of these vessels are running into government operations and then they're taken out and disposed of. And that's why all you can find are the bloodstains and the bullets. Because if it was something supernatural, these sailors must understand that you can't kill something that's not physical. Just makes you think. On March 23rd, 1973, the 88-foot yacht Defiance was seen from Cap du Mollet, Haiti, heading out to sea with sails set, but her 4 crew missing. She had left Puerto Plata, the Dominican Republic, the previous day, bound for Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Without any definite explanation, one way or the other, several other yachts have turned up derelict and are still under investigation, such as the 45-foot Scarlet found near St. Martin in 1994, and the fishing vessel Hemingway off Cuba in 2001, abandoned by captain and crew. See, I don't get that with some of these where the captain is missing as well. The captain doesn't just abandon ship. It's like one of the main rules. So that also raises the question, were these people taken against their will? Yeah, Joel says the truth is out there, but we are always in the not need to know. And Beyond the Box says, oh, we need to know. Yeah, we're in the government, we're categorized as all we don't need to know. Like we're put in that box, right? Okay. Continuing on. If those who feel Norfolk and the Chesapeake Bay area constitute a fourth nodal point in the triangle are correct, then the continuing disappearances there may be considered, like the Erica Lynn on August 10th, 1998, which was not known to have disappeared until a life ring was found with its name stenciled on it. The Carolina vanished in November of that same year, 1998. On November 15th, 1999, a 22-foot day cruiser with 2 persons on board went missing in the short distance between Frying Pan Shoals and Frying Pan Light In the Triangle's more southern waters, the 65-foot Intrepid disappeared 30 miles off Fort Pierce after a garbled SOS on October 14, 1996, with 16 persons reported on board. The 74-foot Interlude was posted overdue on a cruise around the Caymans sometime in November 1998. The last course of the vessel was uncertain, though its owners had listed Cayman Island as their destination. More recent disappearances of merchant vessels include the Kurika, spelled Kurika, which left Bermuda for the Azores in April 1991 and was posted as an overdue vessel by Lloyd's of London. The same for the 357-ton Jamaica K, en route to Miami from Cape Haitian in March 1995. The motor vessel Genesis last spoke with another vessel off the lee wards on April 20th, 1999 at 5:30 p.m. She was in cargo of 465 tons of brick, water tanks, and concrete slabs. When it was determined she was overdue, a 33,100 square mile search failed to locate the vessel. And just for example, they have pictured here a general purpose cargo freighter. Come on. Yeah, this isn't wanting to focus here. There we go. It is perhaps easier to minimize the significance of the disappearance of ships and boats as opposed to aircraft. After all, the sea is very large, and a ship moves relatively slower over its expanse as compared to an aircraft. As a result, ships are out of sight of land, both visually and from radar, for long periods, allowing more opportunity for something to happen, and, frankly, more time for it to happen. During transit, contact is often only every 2 days, and this is limited to terse position updates. Weather can turn foul suddenly, and at a ship's slow speed, it is hard to avoid it, whereas an aircraft can divert around it in a matter of minutes. For smaller pleasure boats, there is absolutely no schedule. Neither do they have to report their departures or estimated times of arrivals. They leave the U.S. East Coast and Caribbean islands en masse. Often their destination or course is unknown, except to a friend or business associate, who may not become alarmed for their safety until days later, when the boater does not show up at home or for work. Storms and hurricanes continue to take their toll on shipping, causing disappearances anywhere in the world. But to be lost in the Bermuda Triangle implies an element of the unexplained, raising questions about whether they were lost naturally or from some as yet unexplained phenomenon. And that's what we're trying to get at here with this series. What is that as of yet unexplained phenomenon? Technically, any incident that occurs within the Bermuda Triangle is a candidate for mystery, but the term would be a misnomer if applied too broadly. Once the occurrence of a storm is established, the incident is removed from the litany, since it is in this sense not a unique event, as a storm can strike anywhere in the world and provide ample force to send a ship down. Because a ship's track is often thousands of miles between ports, some have been posted missing in the triangle by virtue of the fact it lay on their course. However, when their last position reports become available, these place them thousands of miles beyond it, as in the case of the freighter Ithaca Island, which disappeared en route to Manchester, England, from Norfolk, Virginia, in November 1968, but last reported herself between the Azores and England, heading north. The Greek tanker Milton Iatrides left New Orleans for South America and disappeared, but last reported herself south of the equator, off the hub of Brazil. It stands to reason the opposite is true as well. It is impossible for the US, British, Canadian, and Bahamian Coast Guards, those authorities most often concerned with the Triangle Seas, to keep track of traffic in it. Hundreds of vessels sail through it uncounted each month. In essence, the words of Captain John Waters still ring true. Quote, "Small boats, yachts, and fishing vessels in uncounted numbers disappear. Long searches produced no sightings and no clues, only speculation." End quote. Hey Paul, welcome. Good to have you here. Even when a list of vessel names is extracted, with persistent prodding, one might add, from the Coast Guard, the information can be ambiguous. The 7th Coast Guard District does not, in the words of Lieutenant Commander Ruvolo, quote, "track the number of persons missing or presumed dead at sea. It does track lives lost in our area of responsibility." End quote. A cautionary note added, quote, "Please be aware that at times it is very difficult to accurately account for the exact number of people on board a vessel because of poor reporting." End quote. This note may serve to elucidate the following shit for part of fiscal year 2000, where an overdue vessel's name is followed by essentially nothing but zeros until it reads, quote, case closed, end quote. It says see table at beginning on the next page. I wasn't going to show this right away here, but they're referring to these logs when it comes to the people missing and everything. It's just all zeros in the columns, and then it says case closed at the end. And the only numbers changing shows lives lost, so I guess those are confirmed. Or no, lives saved. But everything else is all zeros. And there's 3 pages worth of that on here. Of the 130 or so cases for 2000, the year 2000 alone, where the vessel is posted as overdue, overdue, OVD, or unreported, depending on who is keying in the results. Some of the boats may have made port later, but the Coast Guard is unaware of it. It may also mean a missing vessel was reported, but with such little information presented, there's absolutely no way for the Coast Guard to even commence a detailed search and evaluation. Or it may mean that the Coast Guard never found the boat and therefore does not know how many persons were on board. Even the clarification appended to the list does not help. It represents a, quote, statistical listing of all cases we have kept on file, end quote. Although it is not clarified why these were kept on file. Dozens of missing boats may not have been retained, while potentially insignificant incidents are listed. U.S. Coast Guard headquarters in Washington, D.C. likewise maintains that no such statistics for missing boats are kept. Why? That makes no sense. It does, however, provide outcrops that may reflect a culled-down version of those maintained by direct offices. Quote, missing recreational vessels, end quote, which can mean sunk or not recovered as well, for fiscal years 1990 to 2000, for the 5th and 7th districts, are divided according to cause: weather, hull fractures, fire, etc. It is not these which are of interest here, since if the cause is known, it means it was a sunken boat from which the crew were rescued. But on an average, 60 boats per year are placed in the category, quote, caused by other factor, end quote. So an average of 60 boats per year are placed in that category of caused by other factor, which is statistical parlance for, quote, nobody really knows, end quote. Allowing a certain amount for hijacking. The number for truly unknown disappearances could tally around 20 to 30 per year. So we have charts here. It says overdue vessels, incidents as reported by U.S. Coast Guard 7th District, part of fiscal 2000. And these go it starts with case number 166 and goes to case number 1139. But this is listing 27 cases. It's a mix of U.S., Mexican, and British. I'll briefly show you this. It's something a researcher would really want to look at. But I guess if you're doing further research on this, you're going to want to pick this book up. So me not showing this in its entirety is okay. Because you should be going out there and getting the book if you're looking into this more. And I'll briefly show the last one, too. Alright. Hi, Rain. Good to see you here. Beyond the Box is going out to get some coffee. We got about 6 or so pages left. Alright, continuing on. Allowing a certain amount for hijacking, the number for truly unknown disappearances could tally around 20 to 30 per year. These are just a couple of examples of how difficult it is to actually establish a boat disappearance. Of the 130 cases for 2000, long searches were undertaken for Vidar, spelled V-I-D-A-R, Aruba to Roatan, November to December 1999. The Adanac, spelled A-D-A-N-A-C, from North Carolina to British Virgin Islands, November 1999. Lucky Dog, destination Florida, December 1999. Intrigue, from Bahamas to San Juan, February 8th, 2000. The names go on and on, finally ending with an appropriate Insanity. So the boat was named Insanity. overdue from Key West to Costa Rica, September 2000. Beyond this chit, there is little information. So do you understand that? This is basically the log that the government's keeping. For the public, that is. That's it. There's no extra descriptions or anything. Requests for search and rescue reports are the only way to determine what might be the fate, what the weather was like, and if there was any unusual radio contact or SOS. Quote, report, end quote, is, however, a broad term, since there is no investigation. They are mere records or dispatches sent between vessels and RCC, or the Rescue Coordination Control Headquarters, relaying vague details and hours spent searching this or that location. And if you are determined to be a nosy inquirer, even these become unattainable, as the Coast Guard can discriminate among who gets them free and who must pay high research and photocopy prices. Some, however, may reveal surprising elucidation. Clues found aboard derelicts like the Allison Selene from December 27, 1999, indicate its master, Coast Guard Petty Officer Bobby Powell, was peacefully fishing in shallow water 7 miles northeast of Andros Island, with the ignition off, before he vanished from the boat without trace. And that something disturbed retired Navy Captain Tom Olszewski on his 38-foot sailboat Tropic Bird, causing him to stop his noonday log entry on June 8th, 2000, and come topside. The Tropic Bird was next found deserted hundreds of miles away, gently beached on an Antiguan reef on June 22nd, out of fuel, frozen food rotten, fresh water barely touched, with an interrupted entry in the log. Quote, 12:56 p.m., off Grenada, making good time, end quote, without finished longitude and latitude notation. It's very similar to these reports of them saying all is well before completely disappearing. For fiscal year 2001, a comparable number is found. Names run the gamut. So these are names of ships here. Hard Times, Fat Cat, Far Side, Shady Lady, O'Dally, La Sabia, Veronica Jovi, Calypso, Foley, Ado, and that's spelled Folie, Adeaux. Next is the Slow M Ocean, spelled SLO-M-OCEAN. Then we have Imari Trader, Hannah B, Halfway to Heaven, Sea Hunter, Fali E Du, Cosmic Hippo, Pluto, Antares, Free Spirit, and so forth. Some are found quickly, others are not. While it is as true today as it was 40 years ago that the sea is large and a boat relatively small by comparison, it is not as easy to dismiss these disappearances as, quote, routine, end quote, anymore. At least beyond general satisfaction. The disappearances within the last 20 years must be viewed within the context of the vast network of modern electronics, satellite tracking, GPS, and automatic distress signaling. On the face of it, the sailing challenges appear the same today, but in reality the sea is only as broad as the length of time it takes a radio beam to speed across its surface. RCC Bermuda's Marine Harbor Radio is at the center of an Atlantic swept by signals. Its log details a host of scenarios. Within the last 2 fiscal years, Bermuda picked up the 406 megahertz EPIRB signal from the tanker Chevron South America in November of 2000, accidentally activated during routine tests off Brazil. In December, another 406 megahertz alarm was traced to the yacht Sokar, which was immediately contacted and apologetic for inadvertently tripping the signal. A few days later, a 121.5 megahertz EPIRB set the direction finder working at Harbor Radio, which traced it to the Bermuda South Shore area, to Ginger Pepper at anchor. The EPIRB had fallen because of a broken bracket and started transmitting. While 200 miles east of Madeira, the Chiquita Joy also accidentally tripped her 406, and Bermuda immediately traced it. March 2001, Falmouth, England picks up another signal registered to a Bermuda ship, which was discovered all right off the Azores. Another accidental transmission. No, that's it. Another accidental transmission. Another Bermuda registered EPIRB to the vessel Loretta Ann traced her to the Caribbean, another inadvertent triggering. High Noon started taking on water 850 miles southwest of the Azores. and the two crew abandoned the boat and activated the EPIRB. The Coast Guard immediately diverted the bulk carrier Putney Bridge to the scene to rescue them. April 2001, RCC Cyprus couldn't raise one of its vessels. RCC Bermuda started transmitting, also without success. RCC Norfolk finally located her south of Bermuda, having radio trouble. Pasha 1 washed ashore on Bermuda after having been abandoned in November 2000 by her ill crew 380 miles northwest of Bermuda. May 2001, another 406 was activated by accident. This at the airport in Luton, England, Luton, and traced by Bermuda. Another 406 at 470 miles west-northwest of Bermuda. A C-130 overflew and discovered it to be Vesper. Water ingress activated the EPIRB and the signal was secured. Solitude lost her mast 160 miles north-northwest of Bermuda in a gale. The crew opted to abandon to container ship Sealand Performance, and the derelict drifted on as a navigational hazard. August 2001, RCC Halifax picked up another 406 from a Bermudian passenger vessel, European Envoy. That's the name of it, European Envoy. Harbor radio traced the vessel to the Irish Sea and confirmed it was an accidental transmission. Near Bermuda, the Gringo picked up wreckage from the freighter Sea Breeze, lost December 2000 off Virginia. November 2001, Bon Secure was disabled in rough seas and the crew abandoned to Naval Auxiliary Gold River. The derelict was posted as a navigational hazard. Bermuda Aircraft 406 was picked up. It was discovered safe in Grenada, 1,500 miles south of Bermuda. December 2001. Another 406 was picked up, unidentified by registration. RCC Madrid located the vessel and rendered assistance off the Spanish coast. On January 27, 2002, urgent calls began for the 34-foot sailboat Manx, M-A-N-X, overdue from the Canaries to Miami, without success. May 2002, lightning struck the mast of the 60-foot sailboat Amule, spelled A-M-U-L-E, 40 miles north of Bermuda. Damage extended from mast to deckhouse. Received help from passing freighter Bermuda Islander. Another 121.5 EPIRB signal was received. The transmitter fell overboard from the vessel in St. George's Harbor. Another 406 was received from Leopard Bay, south of the equator. Battery faulty and disconnected. June 2002, Caliente was found derelict 220 miles northwest of Bermuda by Boomerang. So the name of the ship that found it. boomerang. It was confirmed that the Coast Guard had airlifted the ill crew while it was 50 miles off Hatteras, North Carolina. JOS hit an underwater object and transmitted a distress signal, quickly monitored by Bermuda and located 1,300 miles south off Aruba. An accidental 406 came from Bomberino, 160 miles northwest of Bermuda. Bienstar, spelled Bienstar, via satellite phone, informed Bermuda their boom and rigging was lost 200 miles northwest of Bermuda. Even 20 boats disappearing without sound or trace within such a web of communication would seem to suggest the unusual, even if the number itself did not. Even more weird, as in a 121.5 EPIRB beacon picked up on May 4th, 2002, only 50 miles south of Bermuda. Quick overflights can find no trace, but the signal continues, as if from another point in space or time. I think that's very important here. Let me check the chat real quick. Good to have you here, Zenray. I see you here. Very cool. Yeah, we're almost near the end of the chapter here. But let me reread this one portion. Even more weird, as in a 121.5 EPIRB beacon picked up on May 4th, 2002, only 50 miles south of Bermuda. Quick overflights can find no trace, but the signal continues, as if from another point in space or time. Sometimes this is the only clue to a vessel's presumed position in the triangle, a garbled and ambiguous SOS. Reports from AMVER, or the American Merchant Vessel Emergency Report, vessels record a variety of such encounters. Quote, M/V Raleigh Bay reports VHF FM Channel 16 Mayday call. Hermina and Sea Monarch diverted through sea. No distress sightings. Search suspended pending further developments. End quote. Or, quote, M/V Alabama, possible explosion. Confirmed sighting flash, diverted to investigate. No significant findings. End quote. This also underscores the amount of unknown activity in the waters of the Triangle. The sources for the numerous sightings of unexplained lights and brilliant flashes on the surface as above, when investigated by passing freighters, have never been determined. Let me read that one more time. This also underscores the amount of unknown activity in the waters of the Triangle. The sources for the numerous sightings of unexplained lights and brilliant flashes on the surface, as above. So in the skies too, when investigated by passing freighters, have never been determined, adding yet another element of mystery to the goings-on in the triangle. In many of the search operations for missing vessels and planes, these same lights, often described as white luminescence, have been reported but never tracked down and confirmed as flares. It is more likely that these lights are always present but are unnoticed or unreported unless there is a reason. So these lights are just seen and they're like, yeah, these things are here, but we're not going to chase them or find out what they are. So there's just random lights while they're flying around searching. That's wild. I'll read that one more time. I know we're also crunching for time here, but we're good. In many of the search operations for missing vessels and planes, these same lights, often described as white luminescence, have been reported but never tracked down and confirmed as flares. It is more likely that these lights are always present but are unnoticed or unreported unless there is a reason, as when a ship is alerted to a possible missing vessel or downed plane. Notwithstanding, it is a curious fact that their source always remains elusive. In one recent search, Admiral Richard Rybacki admitted, quote, "We'll never know if we were seeing signals for help. The lights were so far away and lasted just a few seconds. Each time we had a sighting, it gave us new hope as we sent ships and aircraft to investigate. Despite a thorough search, we were disappointed each time to find no one in the area." End quote. Sounds to me like these are those lights that, like what I captured up in the sky, where they appear and then they disappear. And if this is happening on the water like this, they send ships out to go investigate and they find nothing. And that's only if they're looking for missing vessels. One Coast Guardsman expressed himself more frankly, quote, "It might be 1 mile away or it might be 30 miles away. There are no geographical references at all on the ocean. On land there are mountains and hills, but on the ocean, all you've got is the horizon." End quote. Although the list of vessels lost in the Bermuda Triangle is always changing, as some are added and some are removed, those removed have never been caused by the finding of any vessel firmly established as missing. The removals have always come after the presence of a storm or by verifying a vessel had long passed the triangle while sailing its course. The same applies to smaller aircraft and boats. Never has any hulk been found, even in the shallow waters over which many were known to have been sailing. With relatively few exceptions, most disappearances take place in the southern waters of the triangle, in and about the Bahamas archipelago and southern Florida, where the underlying continental shelves are, in some cases, so shallow the water is transparent. Scuba diving is a major attraction in the Bahamas and Florida Keys, with treasure or salvage being the ultimate goal. The shallows of the banks of the Bahamas and Keys are a breeding ground for relics, both old and new. They are also a mine of historical artifacts dating back to the Spanish treasure fleets that used the Gulf Stream to hasten their return to Spain. Artifacts from the many luckless galleons that went aground during storms and hurricanes. The grass-studded bottom sands of the Keys constantly yield cannons, anchors, wood spars, ship's bells, and occasionally medallions and more valuable items. It is hard to tell how valuable the material being brought up is, as the more valuable finds are seldom reported. It is no exaggeration to say that the ocean floor is a veritable museum of artifacts, one that is all too easily accessible to some of the rankest and most thoughtless amateurs. Potholes and trenches are found blown and cut into the sandy bottoms, where some enthusiastic salvors used pumps to blast the sand away from promising or random spots to find artifacts. These depredations are a constant worry to marine biologists who are interested in preserving the indigenous sea life, and a nuisance to archaeologists who would like to preserve the historical value of the ancient shipwrecks for future study. Several of these finds turn up later. Cannons, anchors, and other Renaissance metallurgy gild the fronts of shops or stand vigilant outside restaurants. They may not last for as long above water as below, as the elements are corroding them at a faster rate. Yeah, the sea salt keeps these things from weathering. Florida Keys residents have made a museum and placed it in an authentic atmosphere on the bottom of the sea off of Key Largo. Divers can view pieces of wrecks, such as cannons lying in the bottom grass, a prostrate spar, an anchor, and other vintage nautical items, all of which have been dredged from the Keys' sandy bottom and spared the dubious antiquities dealers' divers. So we have an overhead map here in the book. It says, clear areas within the map outline contours of the shallow banks of the Bahamas and the Caribbean. The changing depths of the ocean around them are indicated by the varying shades of dark. Land masses are shown in black. The largest underwater bank is the Great Bahama Bank, into which extends the odd tongue of the ocean, a deep canyon of unusual geologic shape. Many of these banks are only a few fathoms deep. So here the land masses are in black. Essentially, we're looking at Florida right here. We have Cuba right here. And this is just showing the shallowness of it. So the brighter it is, the more shallow it is. But 20th and 21st century contributions to the seafloor aren't like the old galleons, brigs, and Cape Horn schooners. Our ships and planes are steel and fiberglass, sturdy and sometimes incredibly big. They don't rot away quickly. They lie broken and snapped on the bottom, a putrid color green, crusted with coral and crawling with sea life. The wrecks usually look fantastic, sometimes cloaked in secrecy, and occasionally mystery. but they are always there. It is true that smaller boats and planes can be broken up in the tides around coral heads and in the rocky shallows, but the banks vary in depth from tumultuous shallows to peaceful, though easily accessible depths of 40 to 50 feet, where a mantle of technicolor blue is seldom disturbed. Of course, there is the possibility that many of the missing in the Bermuda Triangle have been seen but do not attract special attention. They may sit peacefully covered by a thin layer of sea dust, stripped of their valuables a long time ago by salvors who were little interested in cross-referencing the wreck. All of the ships and yachts are not just gone in the sense of physical wreckage. They sailed away silently without one word or clear SOS, even without their automatic alarms to indicate they sank. Their apparent lack of existence on the bottom seems to confirm this. An aircraft may spiral into the ocean, thereupon breaking up into bits that could never be identified by any diver. On the other hand, vessels sink and remain intact, easy to be identified, cataloged, and investigated. Observers of these mysteries, both scientists and lay alike, have not been reticent to consider a wide variety of theories to account for them. Some have reached out to laws of physics, while others have proposed exceptions to our own physical laws. Still, others suggest that the disappearances cannot be natural, and therefore entities from outer or inner space are intercepting them. And yet others feel the answer may lie not in the triangle itself, but in the greater confabs of matter, time, and space. And that's where we're at with at least that's where I'm coming to the conclusion of here with all of these instances. We're dealing with a lot of elements here. Although we must consider all these in working toward a conclusion, we must, in a way, follow the knee-jerk reaction of many and reach out to where many prefer to remain. We must first take into consideration some of the most common problems in overwater navigation that might affect both pilots of planes and helmsmen of ships, and silently and unexpectedly lead them into oblivion. And with that, we have finished this current chapter 3. So for next week, we have chapter 4. Can it be that simple? Leaving a lot for you to think about until then. So we'll have about 13 pages, it looks like, with a few maps on it. And before we head out to, there's a whole bunch of photographs here, but there's one in particular. This top one is the USS Cyclops. I want to say something's happening because of what's running along the land that's under the ocean. And it causes time and space displacement. And there very well may be entities that are taking advantage of that. Disembodied lights that both seamen and aircraft pilots are seeing, most which go unreported. What are we to say? But I'm thinking that's what's happening here. And real quickly, to show you how far we are in the book, we're not even a third of the way through. We're going to be starting page 83 next week. And there, oh my gosh, there's... Let's see here. This book is 261 pages. So we have quite a while. We have still quite a while to go with this book from 2004. And then this same author, Gian J, Quasar, has a follow-up called Into the Bermuda Triangle 2, which I have here on the shelf ready to go. That one's from 2017. So we go from 2004 to 2017. And he updates us with more about the triangle. But we're not even halfway through this one yet. But we are learning a lot here. And I thank you for all being here with me as we go over all this information. Let me check the chat here real quick. Yeah, Andreas, I'm not forgetting you with what you've recorded as well in the sky. So both Andreas and I have recorded these lights that are in the sky that just appear and then disappear. And mine was fairly recently. It was like 2 weeks ago, right? And most of that footage and photography, I made that available on Brenda's YouTube channel, Beyond the Box. So please go check that. Check her channel out. Go subscribe there. She does a lot of interesting videos. Talks about topics that pique my interest as well. Jason H asks, would you rather be lost at sea or in a desert? I would say lost in a desert, Jason, because the sea is really giving me the heebie-jeebies right now. Beyond the Box says, I would rather be lost in my house. Well, that wasn't an option in what he asked. And Paul, it's alright. It's alright if you miss a little bit. Just come on back here. That'll be fine. Watch the replay. Everybody's watching from different parts of the world, so I appreciate it. We got Joel in here, he's from the UK. Yeah, but this'll do it for today. Thank you, everyone. And next week we will be continuing on. So also tomorrow I am starting my series on the Great Lakes Triangle. And at first, so like even though I'll be live for the paid members of the channel, that video won't be released to everyone else until about 2 weeks from now. So by the time that gets released, I'll probably be on part 3 or 4 at that point. But we're going to be looking into what's going on in Lake Superior, which is where most of the Great Lakes Triangle activity's at. And that's going to expand into more more shipwrecks. I have so many books on shipwrecks in the Great Lakes, it's not even funny. But we'll be digging into that stuff. And I'm making it a separate deep dive series so that it doesn't take too much away from what we're already tackling here with the Bermuda Triangle. But keep an eye out for that, and if you'd really like to help me out with the channel, I have the paid membership here. So the lowest tier is $10 a month, but I'm trying to make this worthwhile for all of you. So I do live streams for members only, at least once a week now. I just did one about the earthquakes. We looked at the ley line maps and showed where the earthquake hit and what was on the opposite side of the map at the time. And I'll just be doing little 15-minute videos like that for the members only. But I do have more planned for down the line. It's just taking a little time to develop it all. And Saturday shows, we'll get started with Saturday shows in the mornings again. But I'll see how I feel after tomorrow's Great Lakes Triangle series kickoff, so to speak. And then Sunday is Let's Talk About It. And that show, it'll be covering the Roseanne Barr interview with Tom Althouse, the second one. And then also a little bit on why they're over in the UFO conferences. So it's still 5 not looked at, but we'll be going through it, analyzing and reviewing all of that on Sunday here. And that show might run quite a while. Just make sure to get your popcorn, drinks, and whatever. Get a colostomy bag if you want. Sit here 5 hours with me and go over all this stuff. But that's the schedule for the next week. And then Tuesday's obviously Coral Castle. And we're reading more of the Energy Grid book. And that's about it for this week. So, again, I thank you all for being here. Yeah, Andreas, I'm just tired from reading and just being up all day. It happens. And I'm trying to be a little more articulate and read slower with the books. So it might be having a little effect on me here. If anything, I'm tired of the content I'm covering on Sundays because of Mr. Tom Althouse. He's worn me out. But yeah, other than that, I'll try to get the Madness Hour episode 5 reposted. I have to heavily edit that so that WWE doesn't try to block the video globally again. We were able to go live, and it was up for about 12 hours, and then it got blocked globally. So I have the whole thing recorded. I can put it on other platforms, but I'm going to have to heavily edit it for this channel. So that's about it today, guys. Again, I appreciate y'all being here. And I know Abe is having a show later tonight, so I will probably be over there. But if I'm not, it's because I'm sleeping. So, until the next one, class dismissed.